Welcome back, guys. Episode 8. I'm going to run out of fingers soon. Episode 8 of the Garage Bar. It's been a couple of weeks. I think I'm going to give up and telling you I'm going to do one next week because I never do one next week. But I did tell you West Coast IPA was in my future. Ladies and gentlemen, there we go. West Coast IPA. As inspired by Sierra Nevada. Now, inspired by, not a clone, not a, I want to make something similar. I did want to make something similar, but I realized very quickly I didn't have the hops and I couldn't be bothered buying new hops because I have a freezer full of hops that I need to use. So I went with what I have. I think I spoke about this last time, a couple of weeks ago, but brew day was literally flawless. Nothing went wrong. My efficiency came up as well, which is always what I'm striving for. Doing proper sparges, just making sure everything's dialed in. So, tail of the tape, original gravity 1057. Final gravity was measured at 1012. So that gives us 5.9%, which was considerably higher than the 5% that I wanted. Yeah, just going through US05. Like, I mean, I've talked about this before. US05, not pressure fermented, in a pressure fermenter, but with the valve open. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But it is a fantastic colour. It's that lovely honey straw sort of colour that I like. It's hazy-ish. I mean, it's not New England IPA hazy, but it is within that West Coast style. I could have got a bit of gelatin, but frankly, why? Why would I? On the nose, it's been strange, you know. I talked about it a couple of episodes ago. Last summer or last year, basically, last 18 months or so, I've been drinking a lot of malt forward beers, a lot of, your reds, your lagers, things like that, even a couple of stouts. So, so far this year, it's been a lot of New England IPA styles. So there've been lots of like real hop bombs, and of course, with this being a West Coast. Not that West Coast can't be hot bombs, but this one isn't. This is like a old, something you'd have got in 2015, say. But yeah, on the nose, I'm getting a little bit of, I have to go looking for it. That's the first thing. It's not, it's not getting me here. I'm having to like literally go into it, but I'm getting like a bit of pineapple and a bit of piney kind of resin coming off it. I can't remember what the hops are. I'm not going to look, well, I will look them up. How about that? But yeah, as I say, there's a bit of pineapple, maybe a bit of passion fruit. There's that piney resin type thing going on there as well. Talk amongst yourselves. Yes, so hops: Chinook, Cascade, and Centennial. The 3 C's. This is actually a working man's club in Belfast. The 3 C's. Anyway, never mind about that. First thing I would say is that is a medium-bodied beer, and the bitterness level is kind of, well, what is it meant to be? It was meant to be measured at 50 IBUs. I always think you should have like times 10. So if it's a 5% beer, it should be 50 IBUs. It's 6% beer, and that's kind of your West Coast limit. So this one, because the alcohol is slightly more, it's basically a 6% beer now. If the IBUs are correct at 50, which they may not be because it's an organic thing, so like the potency of the oils, etc., could be different. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm tired. So if it is 50, and I can only go with what Brewfather's telling me. If it is 50, so it's slightly lower, and you do actually notice that there is a bitterness there, but it's not kicking you in the face the way that West Coast IPAs did 10 years ago. But it is there and it is pleasant. I mean, everything I said on the nose, you know, bit of passion fruit, bit of not getting the pineapple on the taste actually, and more like a citrusy type thing going on, and then the bitterness just comes on the tail end, sort of stays around the front of your mouth, which is weird for bitterness. But yeah, I'm really happy with this beer. I'd like to have bottled a bit of it and left it to, or brought it to a house party or something, but I'm going to get back into bottling. That's not on my notes. I don't know if you noticed, but I do notes for these things. I don't just turn the camera on and start talking, surprising though that may be. But I'm going to get back into bottling soon. Maybe bottle 6 bottles of each batch, and either send them out or keep them for a bit longer and see what happens as they age. And maybe do some compare and contrast videos. How about that? Yeah, but that's really all I have to say about the beer. Like, I really like it. It is reminiscing of sort of, as I say, West Coast IPAs from about 10 years ago, and that is a good thing. I'm definitely going to make a couple more of these. I think I mentioned this before. I want to do a Brewdog full punk IPA. Full punk? What's that? Punk IPA. Clone / inspired by, and I want to do an actual Sierra Nevada, and maybe there's a couple of other ones I could have a look at and see, and then maybe just do an original Jacko original, Audley's Brew Co original, which this basically is, I guess. But I want to do it like real punch, you know, bitter. So yeah, that's basically the beer. That only took 7 minutes. So what have I written down in my notes for this week's episode? Watched a couple of videos, literally just off the television there, watching some videos. Big Banana Brewer did a thing like this, sort of talking into the no brew footage, nothing like that, is it? Talking head, that's the word I'm looking for. He did one of these about his Barca. Was it a lager, Stephen? I think it was. And he was talking about being in Spain and drinking loads of Radlers. Something I like when I'm over there myself. They're sort of refreshing daytime drinking beers, as I would put it. He talked about maybe doing one himself. And I don't know, like it just basically reminded me, the first thing that came into my head was, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago now, I did a Kolsch, which was basically inspired by Radler beers, and I did a lime Kolsch, which sparked the whole Kolsch police copyright. The Kolsch police, the guy basically called me out on the Facebook thing, saying it's not a real Kolsch, can't call it a Kolsch if you're putting lime in it. And I'm like, dude, you can't call it a Kolsch if you don't make it in clone, you know. But that rumbled on for weeks, and still people, well, mostly me and Stephen, talking about it every so often about the Coast police. Just really, truly bizarre behaviour. It's homebrew beer. You can do whatever you want. You know, if you want to make a pineapple milkshake Coast, you can do it. I mean, I don't really know how you would go about doing it, but you know, you can do whatever you want, basically. And I always comment this on, sorry, I'm going on a bit of a sidebar and a bit of a rant. I always comment this on people who talk about pseudo lagers and, oh, it's not a real lager unless you use a lager yeast, or it's, you know, you can't use Lutra if you're making a lager. You can do whatever you want. It's homebrew. You know, lager literally means storage. So the yeast has, whilst yes, the yeast is what the Germans used at the time, it literally means storing it, and the lagering process was I'm ranting. The lagering process was for storing the beer. So, yes, the BJCP now say it must be a bottom fermenting yeast. It must be this, and that's fine. That's their guidelines, but that's not to say that my Lutra Kvike yeast, that is a top fermenting, doesn't make a good lager. At the end of the day, it tastes the same. And I wonder, and actually, I'm off on one. This wasn't even on my notes. I wonder if you brewed one and said, oh no, I brewed that with 3470. But would the judges actually know? Like, can they tell? That would be an interesting one. I'd love to do that sometime, but I don't enter competitions. There's not really that many things in and around Northern Ireland that does that, but it would be interesting to see. I'm sure someone has tried it, or maybe, I don't know, Dude's Brews or something like that. He seems to be quite involved in competitions. Maybe he can tell me that it actually, yes, it is very apparent when you do something like that. Anyway, it made me chuckle to myself. It just flashbacks. The second video that I watched tonight was, well, actually it was the first video I watched, but I'm going in reverse. I'm going backwards. Obviously, good friend of mine, internet friends, not real friends, we've never met. Brew about Rick Shaw. Rick had put a video up of future-proofing his brewery and his channel. Basically, bought a few things to make it that he can continue doing his channel. I'm not going to spoiler it for you, but it was good. But the reason I bring that one up is whilst it was on, the other half, I was cooking dinner whilst it was on, and the other half came in. She's like, oh, I've seen you watching this guy before. He really reminds me of someone. And I'm standing there going, it's like, can't think who it is. I'm like, and again, no. And a little known fact that, well, I don't think any of you actually would know this, but my other half is a journalist. And she previously did a thing about, and we're talking maybe, I don't know how many years ago, a lot of years ago, a story about Ryanair, the budget airline. Two fellas got on the plane and looked at each other and they were identical. And she was like, oh, I just remembered, that's who he reminds me of. And I'm like, dude, seriously? What the? So if you're wondering, that's what the thumbnail for this video is. It's those two guys that have never met each other before. They're not brothers, they're not cousins, they're not long estranged, who do you call it? They were complete and utter strangers that got on the plane and happened to be sitting side by side on the plane and were like, Spider-Man thing, you know. So yeah, it made me chuckle anyway, that she got that so wrong. Potentially right, I don't know. Rick, have a look at the picture. Do you think it looks like you? They certainly don't look like me. Just continuing on Rick's thing, I dropped you a comment, Rick, but that wee microphone box that you bought, sorry, that is a spoiler alert, microphone box. That wee microphone box you bought is quite intriguing to me. I'm still using the wee collar lapel thing, which I don't know whether it works properly or not, but some guys have said that the echo's down in here. So if you do have a link for that, send it through to me, Facebook Messenger or on a comment or whatever, well, whatever, it doesn't matter. That would be really interesting to me, particularly the price you paid for it. So yeah, I'm gonna have to upgrade the microphone and stuff like that. So that's a fucking, shouldn't swear, that's a amazing segue into the final bit of the video, which is an update. Keep talking to you about, I want to move, I'm calling it a studio. Moving stuff from the old house into the new house, still not really any further on. I have, however, finished doing the base coat of paint. I woke up the other day and after the blistering heat of the British summer, circa 9th of July to 12th of July 2025, when we woke up on the 13th and 14th, it was pissing with rain. So I thought, you know what, I'll do a bit more. So all I have to do now is the ceiling and two walls, and that's the base coat done, and then I'll get some coloured paint on. But with no floor, like we've literally got a concrete floor down, so I don't really want to be moving any furniture in until the flooring situation is resolved. It's a small square room, so it shouldn't be too expensive. It should be all right to do, but unfortunately, realistically, that means that grain to glass videos are on the back foot for another month or two. I'm guessing probably looking at autumn here before I'm going to do any more. grim as that is, it's grim for you, it's grim for me, because I do enjoy doing them, and obviously they do get more traction on YouTube, but it just is what it is. I'm a busy man, guys, you know, just because I'm not videoing it doesn't mean I'm not brewing beer. And when I'm not brewing beer, I'm out in the boat. If I'm not out in the boat or brewing beer, I'm working. And if I'm not brewing beer out in the boat whilst I'm working, I'm doing other chores and stuff. So bear with me, guys. I definitely will come back to it later this year, and it will be this year. I'm not letting this run on for any longer. I've stopped paying the Adobe subscription, which also, like, I have been sort of brewing here and then going back to the old place, editing it all together, coming back, and that's just a hassle in itself. So I've stopped paying the Adobe subscription. I think I'm going to try and get a free editor this time around, or maybe like DaVinci, pay once and then use it forever kind of thing, but we'll see what happens. Right now, however, I am going to leave yous and I'm going to go and watch Usyk versus Dubois 2, heavyweight boxing thing. Enjoy the boxing, really enjoy the boxing. So when it's on, I do make an effort to have a couple of beers and watch it and see what happens. Maybe we'll get a new world champion, who knows? Also tonight, Manny Pacquiao is back at the age of 72, or whatever age he is. A lot of boxing purists up in arms with that. He's fighting a top 10 fighter, having not been active for like 4 years or something, and being as old as he is. I don't know. Anyway, guys, I'll leave you at that. Enjoy, if you're getting sunshine where you are, enjoy it. If you're not, try and make the best of it. And you know, rainy weather is good for brewing beer at the end of the day. Cheers, guys. Not really horror for me. Whoa. Anyway.